Warhammer Vermintide 2 came out in 2018. It's now 2026. Who's still playing this game? Why are we still playing this game? And should you play this game? Well, let's talk about it. Vermintide 2 is what happens when you take Left 4 Dead and you introduce it to Warhammer Fantasy. It's the most fun co-op horde game in the entire industry. It's got the best first-person melee combat in almost any PvE game. The sound design is fantastic and integral to the experience. The visuals do a great job of telling a post-apocalyptic story, and to top it all off, it's the most immersive Warhammer Fantasy game out there. The content that Vermintide 2 offers consists of the game's 20 character classes spread across 5 characters, over 80 weapons to use, and more than 40 maps accessible through 4 different game modes. If all that sounds great to you, then yes, you should be playing this game. I wholeheartedly recommend it. But there are also some things that you need to keep in mind before you jump in. If you're looking for a lively game that gets updates all the time, then Vermintide 2 is not the place that you want to be looking. When it comes to updates, Vermintide 2 sees a lot of balance updates to its various weapons and to its game modes. It also gets a new map every few months, but that's generally about it. The last character class to be released was the Necromancer back in 2023, and the big feature released in 2024 was the game's PvP mode called Versus. In 2025, the game released 3 permanent maps for the game, in addition to a couple of different event maps that were temporarily available for those events. The developers also planned to release a weapons pack in 2025 that ideally would have introduced weapons for the 5 different characters in the game, but that got pushed back to TBA. We don't know when that's going to release. In fact, even at Warhammer Skulls, the de facto Warhammer video game event, which reveals every new upcoming game, substantial update, and provides developer interviews for all of our favorite Warhammer video games, Vermintide 2 wasn't mentioned at all. With that being said, I consider Vermintide 2 to be a complete experience. It's something that I revisit every year and play because I genuinely enjoy the gameplay, not necessarily because I'm looking forward to the next big update or map. But Vermintide 2 is a co-op game. You need other players in order to maximize your experience and get the most out of the game that you possibly can. But I understand that not everybody thinks like I do. A lot of people need content to be consistently added to a game in order to maintain interest in that game. And as a result of both the game being 8 years old and a lack of any significant content updates in the last year or so that really shake up the gameplay, 2 of the 4 game modes in Vermintide 2 are completely abandoned. If you're not familiar, Vermintide 2 has 4 different game modes: Adventure, Chaos Wastes, Weaves, and PvP or Versus. Adventure mode is Vermintide 2's bread and butter, because this is where the majority of players spend their time because they're progressing their characters to max level, gearing them out, and then also just experiencing the various chapters in Vermintide 2's story. As of the end of 2025, Adventure Mode is still being updated, as it's still receiving new maps, and because of its 5 different difficulties, it represents a challenge for a lot of newer players who are getting into Vermintide 2. Depending on how many of the characters that you want to progress to max level and how many of the various character classes that you want to complete each mission on, if you want to do everything on Cataclysm difficulty, which is the highest difficulty in the game, that's probably going to take you 300 to 500 hours, with it being quicker if you do it with a full party and slower if you try to do it solo. If you haven't experienced Vermintide 2's Adventure Mode, that alone makes it worth it for me. That alone makes the game worth picking up in 2026. The next game mode is the antithesis of Adventure Mode, because although it offers no progression whatsoever, it offers unlimited replayability because it's a roguelite, and that game mode is Chaos Wastes. Chaos Wastes sends you on an expedition to the northern realm of the Chaos Gods. Whenever you start an expedition, you start with nothing, but you collect Pilgrim's coins in that expedition that help you purchase different upgrades for your weapons, exotic boons that help you face the various challenges that the Chaos Wastes have to throw at you, and you do all this while mapping your expedition through the Chaos Wastes, selecting different shrines and levels that present different randomized modifiers, all in preparation for the final arena where you fight this souped up boss and have to survive against waves and waves of enemies. In my humble opinion, as somebody who almost exclusively reviews and covers Warhammer video games, the Chaos Wastes is still one of the best game modes ever created for a Warhammer game. If you're a fan of roguelites, then consider picking Vermintide 2 up strictly for Chaos Wastes. This leaves us with Weaves and with Versus, which are the two game modes in Vermintide 2, which, as I mentioned before, are completely abandoned. First, let's talk about Versus, which is an easy kill, because if you're playing Vermintide 2 on console, you don't even know what I'm talking about, because Versus is only available to PC players. Additionally, during North American peak time, I tried to find a Versus match in Quick Play, and I sat in queue for who knows how long before I gave up. And it really made me question why Versus is even in the game, because by having this in the game, it gives people who are looking into the game the wrong idea about what they can expect from the game. I speak for myself and many others in the community when I say that we're completely fine with Versus being removed from the game. If no further development time is going to go towards fixing Versus or improving the game mode, nor should any development time go to improving or fixing Versus, then there's no reason to keep it in the game. I would argue that it's actually detrimental to have in the game, because whenever people try to queue for a match of Versus and they don't end up finding anybody, then they get this impression that the game is dead. And although it may seem superficial, there are a lot of players out there who don't want to play a dead game. On the other hand, it gives gamers the wrong impression to have PvP in the game, even when Versus isn't being played by anyone, because they'll simply avoid the game altogether on the basis that there's PvP in the game at all. I was never the biggest fan of PvP when it was implemented, but I did think that it was cool that there was this small, dedicated group of people who were interested in playing the game mode. That group of people apparently doesn't exist anymore. So PvP is basically a lost cause. But what about Weaves, the other abandoned game mode in Vermintide 2? Weaves is supposed to represent endgame content for Vermintide 2, though it's poorly implemented because it has its own progression system built into the game mode that is completely separate from the adventure game mode. This means that after leveling all your characters up to level 35, which is the max level in the game, and then equipping them with veteran tier equipment, which is the best equipment in the game, none of that really matters because you don't bring any of that into Weaves. And to even do all of that, it's going to take you hundreds of hours. Ideally, this shouldn't be an issue because you should be able to just go into Weaves and collect a lot of the currency or XP that's used to upgrade your weapons and your amulet that's used in Weaves. Unfortunately, nobody plays Weaves. Even if you did upgrade all of your things, there might be a dozen people on the entire planet that are engaging with this game mode. Which is a shame because I see what Weaves is trying to do. The vision is enacted in Darktide. I think all you need to do to fix Weaves is remove the progression system that's exclusive to the game mode and just make Weaves a continuation of adventure mode. In fact, I know that Weaves has plenty of assets such as unique maps and different atmospheric conditions and modifiers and mutators, but I believe that Weaves should just be adventure mode, but with mutators on those maps and with higher difficulty. A lot of Vermintide 2 veterans just replay adventure mode maps anyways, but with modded difficulties because the maps are so well designed and because there's this nostalgia factor that keeps them coming back for more. But maybe all of this feedback is too little too late, and whenever somebody goes to the Weaves menu or PvP menu, they're just going to be met with silence and dead and abandoned game modes. Thank goodness that the Vermintide 2 that I love is still very much alive in adventure mode and Chaos Wastes. This has been Jefficus, the Emperor Protects.